In my clinic, most women I speak to who are dealing with loose belly skin have already tried 3 or 4 things before they ever find the real answer. They've used firming creams, they've done body wraps, some have even seriously considered surgery, and almost none of them know that the ingredient doing the actual cellular work in several of those expensive products is sitting on a supermarket shelf for under $2, labeled as something completely unrelated to skincare. What I'm about to expose is not a conspiracy. It's a business model used by the skincare industry, and after this video, you will never look at a $90 firming serum the same way again. Before we get to the ingredient itself, you need to understand what is actually happening structurally when belly skin becomes loose. Because the problem is not a surface problem, and treating it on the surface is exactly why most products produce no lasting result. Loose belly skin is a dermis problem, which is the second layer of skin sitting directly beneath the outer layer you can see and touch. Inside the dermis, there are 2 types of protein fibers that give skin its structure. The first being collagen, which provides thickness and resistance, and the second is elastin, which gives skin the ability to spring back after being stretched. After 50, estrogen decline accelerates the breakdown of both of these fibers. Collagen production in the skin decreases by roughly 1% per year beginning in your 30s, and that rate increases after menopause. Elastin degrades even faster once hormonal support is removed. The result is skin that has lost both its thickness and its rebound capacity. It sits loosely because the internal scaffold that was holding it taut has been structurally compromised. No cream applied to the surface changes that directly unless it contains something capable of penetrating the dermis and interacting with fibroblast cells, the specific cells responsible for producing new collagen and elastin. This is the exact point where most products fail. The majority of body firming creams on the market contain ingredients that work only on the epidermis, the outer layer. They temporarily plump the surface through hydration, which creates a mild visual tightening effect that disappears within hours. The brands know this. They photograph the before and after within that hydration window, and then they charge you for a result that biology cannot sustain beyond a single day. A genuine dermis-level response requires an ingredient that is small enough at the molecular level to pass through the epidermal barrier, and that once inside, signals fibroblast cells to activate collagen and elastin synthesis. Before I reveal this ingredient, I have to mention the common category of products called retinoids, which are derivatives of vitamin A, and they are the most clinically studied topical compounds for skin structural renewal in existence. Prescription-strength tretinoin has decades of peer-reviewed research showing direct stimulation of fibroblast activity, measurable increases in dermal collagen density, and improved skin thickness with consistent use. The mechanism is specific. Retinoids bind to receptors inside skin cells called retinoic acid receptors, and this binding activates gene expression related to collagen synthesis. It is not a surface effect. It is a cellular instruction being delivered to the dermis. The challenge with pharmaceutical tretinoin is that it requires a prescription, it is frequently too harsh for sensitive skin, and it causes significant irritation during the adjustment period, peeling, redness, and increased UV sensitivity that many women find difficult to manage. What most people do not know is that a natural plant-derived form of trans-retinoic acid exists and has been documented in the scientific literature, and it comes from the seeds of a wild rose plant called Rosa canina. Cold-pressed rosehip seed oil contains trans-retinoic acid in a natural configuration, alongside omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. The retinoic acid functions through the same receptor-binding mechanism as pharmaceutical retinoids, which is why research on rosehip oil, including a 2015 double-blind study published in a clinical and experimental dermatology journal, demonstrated measurable improvements in skin moisture, elasticity, and fine line depth with consistent daily use. The fatty acids in the oil do something pharmaceutical retinoids cannot. They simultaneously repair the skin's lipid barrier, the outermost protective layer of the epidermis, which in skin over 50 is frequently compromised. A damaged lipid barrier means skin loses water faster, stays chronically dehydrated at the cellular level, and becomes more fragile and thin over time. Rosehip oil addresses both the structural renewal need and the barrier repair need in one application. Now, here's what the cosmetic industry did with this. Brands began identifying and extracting the active components of rosehip oil or synthesizing close analogs and relabeling them under clinical-sounding trade names, bioretinol complex, and plant cell renewal concentrate. The active mechanism is identical or closely related to what is in the cold-pressed oil. The price point is between $40 and $120. The raw oil itself costs between $1.50 and $4 in most supermarkets, sold in the natural foods aisle or near the cooking oils. The critical word is cold-pressed. Heat extraction destroys the retinoic acid content because trans-retinoic acid is thermolabile, meaning heat breaks it down. A refined or heat-processed rosehip oil will not produce the same result. The bottle must say cold-pressed and ideally unrefined. That is the only specification that matters at the point of purchase. Application method and timing are not secondary details. They determine whether the ingredient actually reaches the dermis or evaporates off the surface. Skin cell regeneration follows a rhythm, with fibroblast activity peaking between roughly 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. This is the biological repair window. Applying rosehip oil immediately before sleep places the active compounds at the skin surface during maximum fibroblast activity, which means the retinoic acid reaches its cellular targets when those targets are most receptive. For the abdominal area specifically, apply 3 to 4 drops of the oil to clean, and use slow, upward circular pressure to massage it in. Upward massage on the abdomen encourages lymphatic drainage toward the axillary lymph nodes, reducing subcutaneous fluid retention that contributes to the puffed, soft quality of loose skin. The skin should absorb the oil within 5 to 7 minutes. If it sits on the surface longer than that, the skin's lipid barrier is too compromised to absorb efficiently, which itself confirms the barrier repair component of this protocol is necessary. It's also important to set realistic expectations when applying this, because unrealistic ones are what the cosmetic industry exploits to keep selling you the next product when the last one disappointed you. Rosehip oil does not lift or tighten skin in the way surgery does. What it does is progressively improve dermal thickness, elasticity, and surface quality over a period of 4 to 12 weeks of consistent nightly use. The mechanism requires time because collagen synthesis is a biological process, not a chemical reaction that happens overnight. In the first 2 to 3 weeks, what most women notice first is a change in skin texture, with the belly surface becoming smoother, denser, and less papery. Between weeks 4 and 8, the improvement in elasticity becomes more visible. The skin begins to recover its shape more quickly after being pressed or pinched. Significant changes in laxity, meaning the degree of loose draping, require consistent use beyond 8 weeks, and the degree of improvement depends heavily on the severity of collagen loss already present. But it's never too late to start this treatment. One additional mechanism worth explaining is the role of omega-6, specifically in the context of loose abdominal skin. The omega-6 fatty acid in rosehip oil is a direct structural component of ceramides, the lipid molecules that form the skin's barrier. Skin over 50 is frequently deficient in ceramide production, and this deficiency is a direct cause of the thin, fragile, translucent quality that makes loose skin look worse than its actual structural state. Topical application of omega-6 has been shown in research to restore ceramide levels in the epidermis, which effectively re-thickens the outer skin layer and restores its opacity and resilience. This means rosehip oil is working on 3 levels simultaneously, signaling collagen synthesis through retinoic acid, restoring barrier function through ceramide precursors, and reducing inflammation through omega-6, because chronic low-grade skin inflammation, driven by UV damage and oxidative stress, is itself a known accelerator of collagen degradation. Here is the practical protocol to implement this correctly. Every night after showering, pat the abdominal skin dry, but leave it very slightly damp. Not wet, just not completely dry. Slightly damp skin absorbs oil-soluble compounds more efficiently because the water in the skin creates a temporary increase in permeability. Apply 3 to 4 drops of cold-pressed, unrefined rosehip seed oil directly to the abdominal area. Massage in slow, firm with upward circular strokes for 2 full minutes. This is enough time to promote lymphatic drainage and ensure penetration without mechanical stress on already fragile skin. Allow to absorb completely before dressing or getting into bed. Do this every night without gaps. Consistency is the only variable that cannot be replaced by anything else. A bottle of quality cold-pressed rosehip oil contains enough product for approximately 6 to 8 weeks of nightly abdominal application. At $2 a bottle, that is a cost of roughly 30 cents per week. Compare that to the firming serums currently charging $80 for a 6-week supply of a repackaged version of the same active compound, and the business logic of the renaming strategy becomes self-evident. The cosmetic industry does not profit from your skin improving with a $2 product. It profits from a cycle where expensive products produce temporary results, you conclude your skin cannot be improved, and you move toward increasingly expensive or invasive interventions. The science does not support that conclusion. The dermis retains the capacity to produce new collagen at every age when the right cellular signals are delivered consistently. The tool that delivers those signals most accessibly, most affordably, and with the lowest risk of irritation is sitting in your supermarket. Cold-pressed, unrefined rosehip seed oil, 4 weeks of consistent nightly use will tell you everything you need to know. So use this method for 30 days, then come back and share your results in the comments. I'm already reading them. And if this was valuable, consider subscribing. I post content like this every other day, focusing on overlooked habits that actually impact your skin.